You're listening to Packers Talk Network. PackersTalk.com.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, we are here in week one. It is football season. Can't wait for this historic game in Brazil. But first, how about a word from our sponsor?
Yeah, the Brazil game is going to be a lot of fun, Gil. But obviously, coming up soon, we're going to have a home game coming up in Green Bay as well. And a few words about our sponsor, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. If you're still looking for the home opener tickets for over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. If you're watching with us on YouTube again today or on Facebook, thank you for tuning in. You can see the link right there on your page, on your screen. And also for those listening on Spotify or other podcast networks, what are you doing? Sign up for us on YouTube. Subscribe to us. Hey, get on it, man. Like, tune in, watch us. We're going to talk a lot of Packer football. I can't wait. And Gil, it's going to be quite the fun ride this year. 2024 feels like it's going to be a good year to be a Packer fan. And I can't wait as the Packers head off to Sao Paulo to kick off the new season.
Yeah, lots of things surrounding this game. I mean, there was rumors buzzing around that they may postpone it or move it because of air quality concerns due to some wildfires. That does not appear to be going to happen. Then there were some safety concerns, the NFL giving players instructions not to leave their hotels. But at the end of the day, it looks like all systems are go. And Friday night in Brazil, Packers, Eagles, a neutral site road game technically for the Green Bay Packers. But the good news, probably going to be more Packers fans than Eagles fans in the stands in Sao Paulo.
You would think so, but unless you work in Philly and take a plane out of Philly, you may think that there are going to be more Eagle fans there because the flight coming out of Philly was filled with Eagles fans. But that was something that was on social media. I don't want to get too much into it. But the thing is, hey, this is the first game in the Southern Hemisphere the NFL's ever had. It's awesome that they have two very good franchises, two very good football teams in the Packers and the Eagles down there. The Packers, they departed for Brazil on Wednesday morning, and Gil, obviously, the Packers this year, it sounds like that they're going to take a lot more chances, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think I saw the flight tracker today that they were flying above the Bermuda Triangle. So, hey, even the pilots taking a little more chances. I don't know if you want to take the Bermuda Triangle and go over that going back, but, hey, it seems like everyone's on board. We're taking more chances in 2024.
Yeah, bring it, right? I mean, hopefully the Bermuda Triangle will not cause any difficulties for this team. And you know what? If they win the game Friday night, the trip home is going to be fun regardless of what route they take.
And now I just touched on the Packers defense probably taking more chances with a new defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles coming up, they also have a new defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. He's been a thorn in the Packers side for a while. He was a very good D coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers under Jim Harbaugh. Then, obviously, he took over in Chicago, did so well that he got a head coaching job in Denver, but then did so bad as a head coach in Denver that he ended up being became a defensive coordinator once again in the NFL. And now he's with Philly. Looking right there on your screen, last year, Green Bay's total offense was 11th overall in the NFL. Philly's total defense was 26th overall, so not too great in Philly. Gil, though, outside of this, I mean, the offense seemed like for the Packers that they were really taking it to the next level as the season went on. There's a lot of momentum going into this year on that side of the ball specifically. Philly seems like a defense that's trending downwards, but what's a matchup that we should be gearing up to watch between the Packers offense and the Philly defense?
Yeah, there's a few of them for sure. I mean, to me, it's the young secondary of the Philadelphia Eagles against the Packers' talented wide receivers. I am interested in seeing, how certain players from Philadelphia who are going to be playing, let's say, in their first NFL game, how are they going to handle the pressure of being, in an unfamiliar situation on national television, going up against your Christian Watsons, your Romeo Dobbs, your Jaden Reeds, your Dontavian Wicks. To me, that's going to be sort of a big question. And you have Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, making their debuts. Is Darius Slay and Isaiah Rodgers, are these guys going to be able to cover the Packers receivers? And, the thing about defense and coverage in the secondary, the depth matters. And while the Eagles may be able to cover one receiver or two receivers, the Packers have outstanding depth at wide receiver. And the 3 and the 4 and maybe, the tight ends, they may be able to take advantage of the third or fourth cornerback or third safety on the Eagles and really make some big plays as a result.
And I put on the banner, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the Fantastic Four versus the Eagles secondary. I think that's a lot easier calling the Packer receivers that. But outside of that, you still got Malik Heath. You still got Bo Melton, who Jordan Love has a ton of trust in. You still have Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft at tight end. And, of course, you have the new guy in Josh Jacobs at running back. And I'm going to get to him in just a second. But you're talking about this Packer receiving group, this passing game against the Eagles secondary. This Eagles secondary, Quinion Mitchell was a guy who was supposed to be a top 15 pick. It seemed like Howie Rosen is just a name merchant sometimes, and he just picked this guy because he was the most recognizable name in the draft at that point in April when he drafted him. Cooper DeJean, obviously, a lot of people took him off his board because he had the talent, but he's got some medical issues. Isaiah Rodgers, I don't think I'm mistaken here, Gil. I think Isaiah Rodgers was suspended all of last year for gambling. He was with the Indianapolis Colts. He was suspended, I believe, all last year, unless I'm thinking of someone else. And if I am, I apologize for that. But if it is the same guy I'm thinking of, Isaiah Rodgers is going to be playing his first NFL football action in nearly 2 years. So that's pretty significant as well. Darius Slay, you know what you get with him in Philly. But, yeah, this Packers receiving core is going to be a handful for sure, Gil. And it's an Eagles secondary, too. The pass defense last year was 31st overall in the NFL. That's something also to keep in mind.
Yeah, and, you sort of add in, while obviously the momentum does not directly carry over, you showed me those ratings. The Packers offense was 11th, but in the second half of the season, they finished stronger than that. Yeah. And the Eagles defense was 26th you had up there?
Yep.
But they finished their last 6 or 7 games struggling a lot more than even that low rating. So, the trends definitely favor the Packers there. Now, obviously, it's a new season. There's new personnel, especially with the Eagles defense. But I think Philadelphia's secondary is going to have their hands full on Friday night.
And not only was the total defense 26th, usually points usually matter more to me. How many points per game you're allowing. Philly's defense allowed last year 25.2 points per game. That was 30th in the NFL. And you're talking about a defense that lost Fletcher Cox to retirement, Hassan Reddick, who's now with the the New York Jets, holding out with the New York Jets.
Yes.
And those are two significant losses that they lost on that defense. Now, they did pick up Bryce Huff from the Jets, who had a very good year in New York last year. He had double-digit sack totals. The matchup, though, that I'm looking forward to watching, it's the Packers' new toy on offense. It's Josh Jacobs against that Eagles rush defense. And the Eagles rushing defense, it is a little bit better, obviously, than the passing defense. They were a top 10 run defense last year. They got a lot of good players in that front seven. Guys like, they still do, even after the Fletcher Cox retirement. Guys like Jalen Carter, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat. You have Jordan Davis, a big man at D tackle. You got some good players in that front seven. But then Josh Jacobs, this is a guy who the Packers brought him in. Brian Gutekunst brought him in with the thought of, hey, this guy's going to be our bell cow. He's going to be on the field all the time. He was able to produce, even though he didn't have the greatest situation in Vegas. He's got a hell of a situation in Green Bay now with all the receiving weapons, an O-line that should be good, that should be solid if they stay healthy, knock on wood. But that's Josh Jacobs is the guy that I'm looking forward to seeing how he matches up against that Eagles rush defense and how Matt LaFleur is going to scheme him open in the passing game and how he's going to find the alleys in the run game. I'm really excited about the Josh Jacobs debut for the Packers.
I am too. And one thing that I'm interested in seeing, when the Packers had Aaron Jones as their primary back, I think Matt LaFleur was a little hesitant to overuse him.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we'll see less of that with the bigger, younger Josh Jacobs as the running back, a guy who is more capable of giving you 18, 20, 25 carries or 25 touches in a game. And the other thing is, the Packers offensive line, they were a very good pass protection offensive line last year, but the run blocking was at best.
Yeah.
We need to see better this year from the Packers offensive line. And so, I want to see Rasheed Walker be better at run blocking. I want to see Josh Myers be more consistent at run blocking. And more importantly, we have the right guard situation where we're probably going to see a mixture of Sean Ryan and Jordan Morgan. Those guys have to be able to open up holes for Josh Jacobs, because even the best running backs in the league, it's easier to run through holes that are there than holes that are not when you have to make your own space and time. So I am looking to see also how that offensive line opens up holes for Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, that's a big question, because you got to think the Packers offensive line, I think, has talent. It's just the depth behind it is kind of shaky, and that's the only potential issue. And for those following us and watching us on YouTube and Facebook, feel free to chime in what matchup you want us to talk about possibly that you're looking forward to seeing. Gil and I have endless knowledge of the Green Bay Packers to a point, but we love Packer football. We breathe it, we eat it, we drink it. It's Packer season, and we love it, and we're here for a reason talking about it. But now we shift over, flipping both sides of the ball for both teams. The Philadelphia offense, the Green Bay defense. Philadelphia's total offense last year was 8th overall in the league. Green Bay's total defense was tied for 17th. That defense used to be coordinated by Joe Barry, now no longer with the Green Bay Packers. Jeff Hafley is the new man in charge. It was a Packers defense, obviously, that had its moments, had its bright spots last year, but it was a big criticism of Joe Barry the last few years was this guy had the keys to the Ferrari, and instead of taking it out for a spin, he just left it covered up in the garage. And I don't think Jeff Hafley is going to do that. I think he's just going to let it rip, as he said in his most recent presser in the last week. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the Packers defense, the new scheme, what they end up bringing out against this Philly offense, a Philly offense that is very good. Gil, what is your matchup to watch between the Philly offense and the Green Bay defense?
Wow. I'm going to start with this. They have got to prevent Jalen Hurts from doing damage with his legs. Yeah. How many times in the last decade plus have we seen running quarterbacks just really hurt the Green Bay Packers defense? Whether it's Colin Kaepernick or Michael Vick or, any of those guys who can move and escape pressure and create plays with their legs. This is a different defense. You mentioned the new defense coordinator in Jeff Hafley. We have a 4-man front instead of a 3. But boy, oh boy, Jalen Hurts can do a lot of damage with his legs. Whether they use some kind of a spy, I would think Quay Walker would be the most likely candidate to fill that spot if they go that route. But Hurts, you get pressure on him. He can escape. He can turn 3rd and 11 into 1st and 10 or even more, more than gaining the 11 yards. You got to make sure he doesn't beat you with his legs.
And with Jalen Hurts, too. Now, I was thinking about that Quay Walker matchup where Quay Walker obviously would seem like a logical choice to be a spy. But Jeff Hafley, I feel like he's got some pieces where he could be creative. And we saw how well I know it's preseason, but Evan Williams and Javon Bullard, I know they're rookies, but those dudes can tackle in space. And I wouldn't mind having guys like that. And Jalen Hurts is a big dude. I mean, he's not a small quarterback. Like he is a thick dude, and he's hard to bring down. I wouldn't mind having Bullard or Evan Williams, especially if those guys are on the field at the same time. You could play a lot of chess, not checkers, against that Philly offense where who's going to be the spy, who's going to drop back in coverage, who's going to blitz. There's a lot of variety that Jeff Hafley could do against Philly's offense. Now, Jalen Hurts, he had 15 rushing touchdowns last year, but he's got no Jason Kelce. The tush push is still legal in the NFL. Jason Kelce was a big part of that. Who knows if they still do the tush push even without Jason Kelce? Jalen Hurts was half of that equation as well. But also the thing is, Jalen Hurts passing was poor last year. This guy became very turnover prone. He threw 15 interceptions last season. That was third most in the NFL behind Sam Howell, who's no longer starting and backing up Geno Smith in Seattle, and Josh Allen in Buffalo, who takes a lot of chances, a bit of a gambler like Brett Favre was back in the day for the Green Bay Packers. But Jalen Hurts really struggled. There was a disconnect there with him and Nick Sirianni. There's been a lot of disconnect there reportedly in Philadelphia. So you just wonder if Jeff Hafley is going to get super aggressive and try to just really fluster Jalen Hurts. So it's just definitely a key matchup to watch there, Gil.
Yeah, no question about it. And you sort of want to go, you want to keep him in the pocket. You don't want him to be able to scramble away, but you don't want to not pressure him either. So there's sort of that balancing act of what you want to do to contain Jalen Hurts. He can beat you in a lot of ways, but I think it is more important for the Packers to force him into second and third and long situations and make him beat you with his arm.
So it looked like the Packers definitely upgraded the depth at safety, the safety position in general with Xavier McKinney, the rookies Bullard and Williams, who had very good preseasons. But obviously, for me, the guy that I think we got to look out for is Saquon Barkley. He was with the New York Giants. He always seems to be a thorn in the Packers side, even though the numbers don't really show it on paper. Saquon Barkley's a problem for the Packers. And this is when he was in New York, where he didn't have the amount of talent around him. It's kind of similar to Josh Jacobs in Green Bay now, where he didn't have this much talent around him in Vegas. He had Devontae Adams, but it was a carousel quarterback. Saquon Barkley, the Giants had so many issues, and Saquon Barkley was not one of them. Saquon Barkley was definitely their best player. Last time the Packers played an international game was in London against the Giants, who also had Saquon Barkley, and Barkley had the go-ahead touchdown the fourth quarter for the Giants in that game. The stats, again, didn't really show it. He had more than 100 total yards, though, but he was a factor in that game. And he's a guy where you got to contain him. You got to keep an eye on him. There's so much he could do with the football. And I feel like Philly's definitely the best situation for him with Jalen Hurts. You got to keep an eye on Saquon Barkley as much as Jalen Hurts. Hopefully they got a good game plan cooking, because one of those guys takes over. It's going to be a long, long night for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and Barkley is one of those guys where you could contain him for his first 6 or 7 carries, and then bam, he just breaks one for 30, 40, 50 yards, and all of a sudden you're in trouble. The other thing is this, and I mean, I think we've talked about it a bit during the offseason. This defense, one of the things they need to do better under Jeff Hafley is tackle.
Yep.
How many missed tackles hurt this team last year, the year before? And, one of the things that Hafley works on is tackling. It's got to be better, because guys like Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, if you don't get them the first chance you have to bring them down and they're out there in space, they can really create problems. So wrapping up, finishing those tackles, it's been an issue for the Packers for a long time. You talked about Barkley also, his numbers. Yeah, he never had 100 yards rushing in any one game against the Packers, but he's also averaging 4.6 yards per attempt against the Packers in the 3 games he played. And if I recall correctly, he had more than 70 yards in all 3 of those games, or very close to it. So, he may not have gotten his team, 120 yards rushing, but anytime they gave him the ball, he was effective.
And I feel like, too, every time the Packers have played him, he's coming off some kind of injury hiccup. He's had a lot of injury issues in his career in the NFL. Packers are going to be playing a fresh, healthy Saquon Barkley. This is the most healthy that he's going to be. First game of the year where you're going to get a full dose of Saquon Barkley. I see Philly definitely giving him the ball a lot, giving him as many chances as possible. Again, the Packers were 17th in total defense last year. They were 28th in rushing defense. It was not good. It was not good at all, Gil. So there's definitely some problems on that Packers run defense that they hope was resolved before this season. But it's going to be an interesting night. Hopefully Saquon Barkley gets held in check. Hopefully Jalen Hurts get held in check. We will see. Just going on, though, just some stats from last year, from 2023. Turnover ratio. The Packers were dead even at 0. That was tied for 16th in the league. The Eagles were minus 10, 27th overall in the NFL. They gave away the ball 28 times in 2023. That was tied for 7th most. Again, we talked about earlier, Jalen Hurts threw 15 interceptions last year. That was tied for 3rd most amongst all NFL quarterbacks. Penalties on offense. Green Bay was the 25th most penalized team. But again, they started out at the bottom of that list, and then they slowly worked their way up the list and improved. That was just the sign of the growth of the offense from last year. The defense, they were 95 penalties. That was 12th overall in the NFL. But again, not as aggressive as the defense. You got to think that number is going to tick up a little bit if Jeff Hafley is as aggressive as he makes it sound like. For the Philadelphia Eagles, they were the 12th most penalized team on offense, the 29th most penalized, or 29th. How do I say that? They were the 3rd most penalized team on defense as well. 29th worst in terms of penalties last year. And then 3rd downs, Gil. This is the money down. This is what determines wins and losses, especially in close games, what we anticipate on Friday night in Brazil. Green Bay's offense was 5th in the league last year, 47.1% on 3rd down. Defensively, they were only 25th overall, 41.1% of opponents converted on for a 1st down on 3rd downs. And then for Philly, they were the 3rd best 3rd down offense last year, tush push being a big reason for that. Their defense, though, 31st in 3rd down conversions, allowing opponents to convert on 46.4% of their 3rd down conversion attempts. Gil, all those numbers and everything, I mean, 3rd down jumps out to me. What about you?
3rd down jumps out to me. And again, I think the difference between Joe Barry and Jeff Hafley, the passivity that Joe Barry used to play, it's 3rd and 11 and he's giving a 10-yard or 12-yard cushion to some of those receivers. You can't do that. I don't think Jeff Hafley is going to do that. I think we're going to see the Packers cornerbacks and safeties getting more, press coverage. May not always be press man, but I think we're going to see a lot more contact at the line of scrimmage, trying to disrupt some of these passing routes, and hopefully the more aggressive style. While the Packers defense may get burned on occasion, there's going to be a lot less of those 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11 turning into 1st and 10, which happened far too frequently in the last couple of years.
Now, I just want to say we're going to get into predictions pretty soon. For those following, watching us on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you may be watching us live right now on YouTube, feel free to chime in the comments section with some predictions. We'll see how Packer Nation is feeling in general. Gil and I will get to our predictions in just a second. Quick injury report rundown. Eagles linebacker Devin White, new acquisition previously with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's out with an ankle injury. He didn't even fly with the team to Brazil. Veterans A.J. Brown, Landon Dickerson, they were both listed as limited in practice on Tuesday, but those were just rest days, so expect them to play on Friday. And then for the Packers, defensive end Aaron Mosby ruled out due to personal reasons. Packers had a few guys who were limited participants in practice this week, including linebacker Edgerrin Cooper and running back Emmanuel Wilson, both dealing with hip issues. Carrington Valentine and Marshawn Lloyd both dealing with hamstring issues. Tucker Kraft dealing with a back issue, and wide receiver Romeo Doubs, potentially wide receiver 1 Romeo Doubs, dealing with a hand issue. But all the game statuses for Friday of all those players currently undetermined, but got to be thinking that they're likely going to be playing on Friday, Gil. It sounds like all pretty minor stuff, not anything major, but I'm more concerned about the hamstring issues with Carrington Valentine and Marshawn Lloyd, because obviously, if you go backwards with the hamstring issue, you got to start all over, and it's a whole long process.
Yeah, and with Carrington Valentine, that's another area of concern, because the depth in the Packers secondary is also going to be tested. Philadelphia has 2 really talented wide receivers that you certainly need to be aware of at all times. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both went over 1,000 yards receiving last year. Both had 7 touchdown catches. You really want to try to have a healthy secondary. And, we're going to see whether or not Carrington Valentine can go, whether or not Eric Stokes can return to his, rookie form that he showed and he can stay healthy and keep up with these guys. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Packers secondary handles this.
And Gil, some quick bullet points. Why did the Packers win in Brazil on Friday? Before we get to predictions, again, those watching, chime in with your predictions. We've already seen a few coming in. Chime in with some predictions for Friday's game in Brazil. But Gil, why did the Packers win on Friday?
Packers win on Friday. First of all, win the turnover battle. I think that is going to be very important. And I think the other thing is you got to contain those dangerous players that the Eagles have. They are so dangerous on offense. Got to slow them down. Cannot allow Hurts or Barkley to make splash plays. I think if you limit the splash plays and you force the Eagles to make those long drives, I think they will make mistakes, and that will lead to a Packers victory.
I think the big thing is you got to win third down. If the Packers win third down, they're going to win this game. And also, keep this in mind as well. The Packers were an ascending team last year, a young team. A lot of pieces are back. It's not the exact team, obviously, but a lot of the best pieces are back from last year's team. And they were a team on the rise, ascending, seemed to figure it out late last year. Philly was going the opposite direction. They started last year 10-1. They didn't even win the division. They went 1-6, including a blowout loss at Tampa in the opening round of the playoffs last year to finish the season. Seems like reportedly a lot of friction going on in Philly. Does that spill over? If it does, it's going to be a rough game for the Eagles on Friday in Brazil. Gil, why do the Packers lose? If they end up on the wrong side of the scoreboard, why do they lose on Friday?
They lose if they give up too many big plays, and if they just I don't know even how to put this. If they're out of sorts, if they're just not comfortable in Brazil with this different atmosphere, with this different situation, if they're off their game as a result of that, and also, if they give up too many big plays.
Yeah, for me, it's a matter of if Philly dominates the line of scrimmage, because that's a good O-line. I know they lost Jason Kelce, but that's still a very good offensive line with Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, and Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens. It's still a very, very good offensive line. And then on the defensive line, you lost Fletcher Cox in retirement, but you got a lot of good pieces on that D-line as well. Does Philly impose their will? Do the Packers get bullied in the trenches? If they do, it's going to be a hard night for the Green Bay Packers. And also, if they show that preseason rust where the starters didn't really play in the preseason, and they show rust in game one, that could be a big factor as well, especially in a tight game like this. Maybe the Packers don't take advantage of that Eagles defensive secondary, which we think they will with the pieces that they have and the assets that the Packers have, and just the struggles that the Eagles secondary had a year ago. That's why I think they lose. Gil, what is your prediction, though, for Friday in Brazil, the first game in South America in NFL history? What's your prediction?
I think this will be a close game. I think these are two quality football teams, but I think the Packers find a way to win. Green Bay 34, Philadelphia 31.
And I want to just chime in real quick. Jason Bosco, thanks for following along. He has Packers 31, Eagles 17. He's thinking along the same lines as you, Gil. For me, this is going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. Week one games in the NFL seem to be sloppy because you can only simulate so much in practices, in joint practices. But the big thing that it could come down to, not only third downs, who's going to convert more third downs in this game, but we didn't even talk about it yet until I'm going to bring it up right now, is the kicking situation.
Yeah.
Braden Arvison, it sounds like he's saying the right things. The Packer coaches really like him. It sounds like he's a monster. The players are fully supporting him. But if it comes down to a few kicks, I trust Jake Elliott from Philly more than I trust Braden Arvison from Green Bay, because I just don't know what to expect with Braden Arvison. It's a matter of just a fear of the unknown on my end right now. And I think there could be some missed kicks and some icky situations on special teams where I give the Eagles the edge. I think they're going to win 27-21. The Packers also, they've had some clunkers in week one under Matt LaFleur since he's taken over as head coach. And I don't know I don't know what to expect, especially when you're playing in South America. Obviously, I hope I'm dead wrong. I hope they prove me wrong. But I think it's going to be Philly in a close game, 27-21 over Green Bay.
I hope you're wrong too.
Yeah. And Gil, before we get to some trivia to wrap up this episode, tell us about articles you have online on Cheesehead TV, Packers Post. Obviously, a lot of what we talked about is you've been working the fingers on the keyboards and everything like that. You got a lot of content online. What can people tune into on the interwebs?
On the interwebs. Well, at the Packers Post, I went through the keys to victory for the Packers and some of the matchups. Also, did a little article on Eric Stokes, and with Cheesehead TV, still working on a few things. In fact, I will be finishing my article on Cheesehead TV after we're done recording this podcast. So,
Gil, don't you ever take a break? Do you ever take a break? Man, I swear, man, you never leave that computer. But hey, good for you, and the readers are better off for it reading your content. So, you ready for some trivia?
Always ready.
All right. Well, the last time the Packers and Eagles met was late in the 2022 season. Aaron Rodgers, he left the game with an injury. Jordan Love kept the Packers in it, but Philly ended up winning a shootout 40-33. There were 9 touchdowns scored between the two teams by 8 different players. Gil, how many touchdown scores from the prior matchup are still on the respective 53-man rosters today? And this doesn't include guys who threw touchdown passes. So Jordan Love, I know he threw a touchdown pass in that game. Aaron Rodgers did too. They don't count because they didn't physically score the touchdown. So I just want to say quarterbacks don't count. How many touchdown scores, though, from the prior matchup are still on their respective 53-man rosters?
And this is not multiple choice?
No, it's not. It's and 8 different guys scored 9 touchdowns in that game.
Okay. I am going to say 3.
You nailed it. 3 players. Do you want to guess who the 3 players were?
Well, Christian Watson, I know, is one.
Yep.
And then the other 2, I think, were Eagles. So
the other 2 were Philadelphia Eagles. I'll just rattle them off right now. It was Christian Watson, A.J. Brown, and Kenneth Gainwell. Other touchdown scores from that game included Aaron Jones, who's now obviously with the Minnesota Vikings, A.J. Dillon, who is technically a member of the Packers, but not on the 53-man roster. Randall Cobb, who's currently got a TV gig. He said he wants to come back, but he's pretty much retired. Quez Watkins, who's with the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad. And Miles Sanders was the guy who scored twice, the former running back for the Eagles. He's currently with the Carolina Panthers. So it was a lot of touchdowns. That game was a game where the Packers end up dropping to 4-8, I remember. And we were just thinking, oh, this is the end of the season, or we're probably going to look forward to next year. And then the Packers went on a 4-game win streak and almost inched their way into the playoffs and really played a lot better in Philadelphia against an Eagles team that ended up winning the NFC Championship that year.
Yeah, but that game, I think, more than anything, was the game when the Packers realized what Jordan Love was capable of doing.
Yes, I agree, 100%. It was very eerily similar to when Brett Favre left that Dallas game and Aaron Rodgers came in and played very well and kept the Packers in it. And then Rodgers became a Cowboys killer. Maybe Jordan Love becomes an Eagles killer, a bird killer in his career. I know Rodgers, when he came in for Favre in that Dallas game when he got hurt, the Packers didn't win that game, but they made it much closer than it should have been. Jordan Love and the Packers didn't win that game in Philly a few years ago. Who knows? Maybe this is a sign of the times to come, Gil. And hopefully we're going to be in good shape going forward. But hey, the 2024 NFL regular season, it's upon us. Packers looking to get the new season start off on the right foot in Brazil against the Eagles. Kickoff from Sao Paulo, scheduled for 8:15 Eastern, 7:15 Central, 6:15 Mountain, 5:15 Pacific, 2:15 Hawaiian time. Gil, let's hope the Packers keep that momentum going from 2023 into 2024. And mahalo, buddy. Mahalo.
Can't wait for this game. No question about it. Let the season begin. That's it for today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter @PhilPackers and @GBPackersSean to stay up to date on all things Packers or to ask us questions. Or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show. Thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go. Mahalo.